I think Pinnacle actually let me not answer your question in another interesting way. Just because I brought it up.
I like that he's straightforward about it.
Your PR guy's working overtime today, Colin.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Behind the Lines, a podcast powered by Pinnacle and purifying the sports betting industry. Remember to like, download, subscribe, follow us on all the socials at InPlay Live. I'm your host, Shane Mercer. We've got the founder of InPlay Live in the house, as always, Andrew Pace over there. And we've got the great Gosu with us right off the top. John Wilson is here. We'll grind the week ahead with him in just a moment, but also on today's show, we've got Colin Davey, the founder of BetScope, joining us to talk data science, how he beats the books, and even how he beat Jeopardy. So that's coming up a little later in the show. But first, a public victory over the books this weekend in the NFL. For those who don't know, sports books everywhere took a beating on the NFL this past weekend. That's because favorites reigned supreme, with many of them not only winning, but covering the spread too. Couple of quick quotes from you here. Joe Brennan, a friend of the show, a guy we had on recently. He's the executive chair over at Prime Sports, a sharp book. He was quoted on Sunday as saying, "What a shit day today in the NFL." Not good for him.
Sorry, Joe.
Another BetMGM exec said, "We had a decent day in the early window, but it's all gone after the Lions kneeled it out." What a smash they put on the Cowboys. Here's another guy, another exec saying, "We got smashed on the Steelers win." Ahead of the Sunday Nighter, another C-suite executive at a sports book said, "It's the worst day of the season so far. This could get really ugly if the Bengals win and cover." Well, guess what? They did. And then the Bills winning was the cherry on top of the shit Sunday for the sports books. So chances are many of you out there know someone who hit a long shot parlay, is celebrating a big win in some way. I had a great weekend betting live with you guys, but it wasn't because I bet any pregame minuses or anything like that. I think it would have happened regardless. But what do you guys think about the masses cashing in?
Well, John, you'd also mentioned the Bengals. The books got middled on the Bengals. So what happened there?
Well, the game last night, they got middled on the total, right? They got middled on they had opened at 44, closed at 42, it landed on 43. And then they really needed the Jets, and they didn't get them either. Bills won and covered. So, I mean, that one
did the bloodbath didn't stop.
It was really bad. Yeah. Like I think it was I saw it was like the worst week in like 30 years. I know I pregame, I typically align myself with the books. I got clobbered pregame, but like you said, Shane, we had an amazing day, especially on Sunday. So, got it all back and then some.
So from a pregame standpoint, though, I've had days where I hear the sports books cleaned up. I've had days where the public's cleaned up, and in both of those circumstances, we have cleaned up. So I don't think there's a correlation with what we do necessarily with the public or the sports books winning necessarily. I think it's more so just finding vulnerabilities live. But I love how the verbiage about this massacre to the sports book is almost like we need to feel sorry for them, So like, the sports books could move the lines more. There was a lot of single score favorites. So less than a score or less favorites. Was there even one? The Eagles were -8.
Yeah, it was the only one.
Yeah, I think they were the only double digit.
Texans
favorite.
-7, maybe. It was like on a flat number, but 6.5. So.
Oh, right. Same with the Ravens was a flat number as well.
Yep.
Yeah, the 7. But anyways, thinking back to Peyton Manning playing the Broncos Jags, he was -18.5 opened, and I think it might have closed at like -21.5. They didn't cover that game. But I've seen some Chiefs Raiders recently in the last few years, -14.5 spreads like that. And the sportsbooks put themselves in a vulnerable position to an extent as well when the lines are that low, I would say.
Yeah. Well, I think it was the worst 5 weeks for the public in 20 years to start the season. And so it was like all these the 2-score underdogs winning outright. Right. So they were due for a good day, let them have it.
Yeah. So like survivor pools, I think last week, there's a lot of pools that had 0 people eliminated after the craziest bloodbath, in Survivor history. So it kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah. A nice reprieve for the public out there to celebrate some wins, maybe recoup some of those losses. And, I think the sports books, Pace, you're kind of saying, hey, it's rain, kind of, that stuff is sort of like, oh, boohoo sports books. But I think that, they're actually going to benefit in the long run from that kind of a weekend, right? They're going to have all those bettors coming back with that money they won, feeling confident, feeling great about themselves, only to hand it all back.
Well, they knew it, right? They knew it.
Yeah, they knew it.
I knew this was going to win, right? And then
Exactly,
they're going to know it's going to win for the next however many weeks and see where it gets them.
There we go. Well, on this show, we don't pretend to know anything about what is going to happen, but we do like to take a look at what's on the menu and perhaps where some advantages might be able to be had. So why don't we put our nose to the grindstone with Gosu here? Gosu, what do you got for the week coming up in the world of football?
Yeah, I mean, we can start with college football. Just talk about there's 2 main games this week. There's only 3 ranked matchups, I believe, but only 2 that I really want to talk about. So the first one is Alabama at Tennessee. So both of these teams have had the same trajectory over the last 3 weeks. 3 weeks ago, they won big games against Georgia and Oklahoma, respectively. 2 weeks ago, they both got upset on the road against Vandy and Arkansas, respectively. And then this past week, they've squeaked out narrow wins at home against South Carolina and Florida, respectively. So kind of interesting. Both teams have gone on a downturn after those big wins. Tennessee's a slight underdog at home. I think Tennessee should be favored in that game. So I'm probably going to back them as a home dog against Alabama, which I don't think this Alabama team is what it has been. And then the other game is Georgia at Texas. Texas, a small favorite. I think it opened at -3. I bet them at -3. I think that number is going to go up close to 5.5, 6. I don't think it'll get past 6, but I like Texas. I think they're just better all around team than Georgia. I don't think this is the same Georgia of the last 5 years. The depth just isn't there. So I like Texas.
Cool. All right. What about over in the NFL?
We're starting off Thursday night football. We have the Broncos Saints, the Sean Payton revenge game. The Broncos are favored on the road.
Yeah, so the Saints were 3.5-point underdogs to the Bucks, who I think we agree are a good football team. And I'm they're telling me that Denver's 1 point worse than the Bucks. That seems off to me. So I think this is a really good teaser spot for the Saints at home. Really low total.
We're back to London. Holy fuck, was that bad on Sunday? The Jags look like they don't belong in the football league, or in the NFL. Now they're 5.5-point favorites to the Patriots.
Yeah, I don't want anything to do with this game.
Next, Titans +9 at the Bills.
Yeah, it's a big number. The Bills are a little bit fraudulent to me, but I kind of just like the under in this game. That Tennessee defense is good. I think the weather might be a little iffy. I like the under in this one.
Okay, Miami dumpster fire against +3.5.
Yeah, I think Richardson's going to be back. It seems like underballed me. I think the totals are actually, only 2 games went under last week. Totals are actually pretty high. There's a lot of totals in the mid 40s, upper 40s. I don't think this is one of them, but I like a lot of unders this week, so I like the under in this one. Okay,
and then what should be Sunday night football? The Lions +2.5 at the Vikings.
So I bet this one at open Lions +2. It's actually gone up to 2.5. I think the Lions are going to be a massive public dog, but I just think at some point the magic on this Minnesota train has to come to an end. I don't think they should be favored personally. So
get out of here. I don't want to hear it. Get out of here.
I love the Lions on a teaser.
I feel like we're just walking right into it, but sometimes the books hang a bad line. Sometimes you just got to punish them.
Bengals -6.5 at the Browns.
I don't want anything. I don't want to watch a Browns game again for the rest of the season.
Texans +2.5 at the Packers.
That's an interesting one. I don't like CJ Stroud on the road and Texans outdoors, so I kind of like the Packers in that one.
Seattle +3 in Atlanta against the Falcons and Kirko.
I think that the Falcons tend to be a little under respected, in my opinion. I bet that one had opened at even money. I think that -3 flat. So I like that spot for them.
Eagles favored on the road against the Giants.
Yeah, it makes sense. This Giants, Daniel Jones is just so bad. I don't really like the Eagles. I think it's like a grindy, NFC East game. I like the under in this one.
All right. Carolina Panthers +7.5 at the Commandos.
Man, I don't think the Commandos are ready to be a 7-point favorite. They're a kind of team you like to back as a dog because they're feisty.
Totally.
I think they got numbers bad.
Raiders +7 at the Rams. Rams -7. They're 1-4. What the fuck is that?
It's a weird line. I think Cup's back after the bye, so I think they're getting a lot of guys back that are healthy. There's been a lot of rumors about the Rams looking to sell players. Like I've heard of rumors about Stafford being traded potentially and stuff like that. But this Raiders team look like they've just quit. Honestly, they were just god awful on Sunday. So.
Anything you like there?
If I had to bet, I would probably lay it with the Rams, but I'd actually probably tease them down. I think that's a good teaser spot. But if I had to play anything, I would play the Rams side and just assume the Raiders are done.
All right, what should be Sunday Night Football Part 2, Chiefs at 49ers, probably the game everyone's going to be talking about the most.
This is the squarest teaser leg probably in the history of square teaser legs. But I think you just have to do it. It's just Mahomes as a dog again. I think it's just a bad line. I think the books they're trying to be a little cute here. I think it's just a bad line. I think Chiefs should be favored.
Okay, Sunday Night Football, Jets with Devonta Adams against the Steelers.
So this is kind of one where I actually like the Jets side to win the game, but I like the Steelers teased. So I want to try to thread a needle here with this one because I think it's just going to be a nasty game.
Okay.
And I think the Jets are due. The Jets have played a lot of games they should have won. I think they should have won that game last night. So I think it's just
and they should have beat Denver. They missed a field goal to walk it off.
They've had some special teams issues, some bizarre penalties, like a lot of weird stuff. Yeah,
the Jets and the Bengals are actually similar in that regard right now. Both of their records could definitely be quite a bit better. Monday night doubleheader again, which is just awesome. Ravens -3.5 on the road to Tampa Bay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is the one I loved when this came out. I think I texted you at like 2 a.m. and it was like I've already bet the Bucks +4, +4.5. This should be under a field goal to me. Tampa's good. I don't know what it is. And the Ravens, they always are inflated. It's just, and I don't like Lamar on the road as a big favorite. It's just a bad spot for him.
All right. And then we got Jim Harbaugh. The Harbaughs are both playing on Monday night. Chargers -2.5 at the Cardinals.
Yeah. I like teasing the bird bags up here. I think it's a low total indoor game. I think Murray's they can put up some points, and it's a good teaser spot for me.
Right on.
All right. Well, there we go. A lot of great actionable insight there. If any of you out there are thinking about acting on some of that excellent analysis from Gosu, Pinnacle Sportsbook is the place to do it. You will get the very best odds around. So if you do want to take a shot on anything pregame, that is absolutely the place to do it. And even if you're betting live and you see something that sort of aligns with what John was doing and the lines haven't moved too much, Pinnacle's still the place to do it. You're going to get the best odds there. So check them out if you're looking to take any action on that. Anything else from you, John, before we move on?
I just have to say, go to pinnacle.com/in-play-live.
There you go. Perfect. All right, guys. Well, John, great to have you as always. Looking forward to having you back next week to grind out the following NFL and college football slate. But for now, we'll say goodbye to you and we'll bring in our next guest. Colin Davey, founder and CEO of BetScope, a mad data scientist and a Jeopardy winner. Welcome to the show, Colin. How are you?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me here.
Hey, really happy to have you. What have you been betting on? Did you clean up this past weekend like the rest of the public?
Sadly, I was in Europe this past weekend, so apparently I missed the one golden window of the year. But no, as always, it's whatever's in season right now. NFL, college, anything with a market in front of it and a data feed to aggregate. I am just finding all the nooks and crannies, which is where I think most of everyone should be spending their time these days. Just figuring out how all these systems work, where the inefficiencies are, and how to maximize your ROI with as little brain cells fired as possible, because who wants to do work anymore?
Ain't that the truth? So are you sort of, digging into the nooks and crannies of main markets more? Are you more of a props guy? Do you parlay? What do you like to do? Do you keep it straight?
I don't try to touch the main markets anymore, because this is kind of how BetScope was, the thesis of why BetScope was founded. I think the main markets are just so picked over by all the big groups out there, where if you, the average bettor, think that you know ball and you're going to wake up Sunday morning and beat the market single-handedly, that's like saying I have a hunch on stock and I'm going to go out trade Goldman on the equities desk with being a retail investor. Without getting too much into the retail stock picking thing, generally, I think there are just so much better opportunities in all these other weird little markets, the alt lines, the props, the like anything and everything that is just like not being picked over that much. Bottom line is, if you are not institutional money and you're just an average, like kind of informed bettor, I think the time and effort is just so much better spent understanding why, when and where these inefficiencies in all these little markets like propagate, why they're structurally like continuous, why they're always going to be there, and just spend your time there. Because at the end of the day, like these are the markets that are the only remaining market inefficiencies. They're kind of accessible to any, I'll charitably call it a retail investor, like if you're that as a sports bettor.
I love how in the grand scheme of everything you just said, you more or less referred to yourself as like an average bettor.
Yeah, like that's pretty much it. Because I say that having spent time in the originating game. Right. I came up and kind of became a data scientist through trying to crack the market on all of these main markets, whether it's golf or tennis betting or even football or basketball for that matter. You learn the hard way that it's not as easy as it sounds, even if you do have a math background, even if you do have an affinity for statistics. Everybody comes into it thinking that they can crack those markets because I'm smarter, I don't know, or I think I know something that no one else does. And you find out that it's a lot harder than it is. And so you either give up saying, wow, this is too hard, or you say, like, what do I need to do to improve my process here? Like, I hold no illusions that I have some sort of great secret model after trying to build years of great secret models that like did pretty well in some niche sports. But the problem with originating is you have to know everything about the sport at all times as the sport continually changes. Even if you have a model that works one year, it requires upkeep. It requires new data sources. It requires so much maintenance and ongoing thinking that the only reason to do that is if you truly love that part of the game. And I do. And I love it enough that like they're cheaper ROI or avenues or opportunities rather than just like trying to basically like just be a casual like dude at the gym rather than trying to bench press 405 pounds every single time. Like, no, you don't need to be a world-class like power lifter or weightlifter. You can just be a jacked dude instead. And that's a pretty good life too.
It looks good, right?
Yeah, I like the way you put that there. That's a really great way to sort of understand it. So is that who BetScope is catering towards, the average recreational bettor? And what exactly will they find if they go and check out BetScope?
I think BetScope is more geared towards the intermediate to advanced bettor, where I think you know that it's the basic idea of I know that there are these market inefficiencies and all these weird alt spreads and totals and all these props and all these other markets that you see out there. And maybe I have some directional way that I think the game will go. What BetScope is more geared towards is letting you access those markets with kind of like a root thesis of opinion. Like all else being equal, like let's say that I think the Bears were going to cover against the Jaguars last weekend. All else being equal, I also like Caleb Williams to hit the over on his passing prop, and I also like Trevor Lawrence to hit the under on his passing prop. Because all these markets are correlated with one another. And not only they're correlated, there are these massively inefficient markets that are correlated with your main market. So what BetScope is trying to push you to do is instead of just saying, I like the Bears, I'm going to go bet the Bears at -1 at the first sports book that I see, tell me that you like the Bears, and I'm going to come up with 7 other recommended bets for you, because in a world in which you're correct and the Bears are going to do generally better, let's find the most cost-effective ways to get you to exposure to that general arc of the game. And it's going to be in markets that you either don't know exist, or it's just too much work for you to have 8 odd screens open and look at 50 derivative markets and constantly being comparing and line shopping. Let's just simplify this for you, where you tell me what you like and I'll construct the portfolio for you. It's also a way to take the less pressure off of you trying to come up with the most perfect investment thesis, either grinding out your model to make sure that all the errors are tamped down, or I got to study up on this area a little bit more. No, just give me a general directional lean. And, if that general directional lean would maybe let you beat the spread market, 50.5% of the time, where you're directionally right, but not enough to cover the VIG, let's just find you the markets that you actually can beat and turn your general directionally correct thought into an actual positive ROI by attacking the markets that are related to your thesis, but you don't need to be picture perfect or world-class sports bettor to make winning bets.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So give me a sense of what I'm going to see then when if I were to sign up at BetScope login, am I going to see suggested wagers? Like you sort of said, if I tell you I like the Bears, to cover the spread, you're going to show me a bunch of other suggested wagers. Are you going to give me the price? Are you going to tell me where to bet them? That kind of stuff?
So we set it up so that it starts off completely agnostic to what your thesis might be. So what we do is we take all the incoming odds from everywhere else and we'll convert those into implied distributions and projections. And so when you see something like a Bears-Jaguars game, you can take a look and you say, this is basically the market projected box score as a whole. And we'll also highlight the markets that might have low hold across two or more sports books. Maybe if there's an arbitrage opportunity, we're just going to highlight all of those markets for you. And the reason we put it in projections format is the intermediate to advanced bettor typically has their own numbers for some of these things that they like, whether they're prop projections, whether that's their original spread projections. We want you to change one of those numbers and say, well, the market thinks the number is this, my number is this. So if you punch in your number and you update all the other numbers, conditional on your number being right, we'll update every other number on the board and run every updated number and every updated distribution against every price at every sports book and give you a recommended list of all the other things that you should be betting that you might have not have been thinking of.
You know what I love about it? Well, first, we can tell you were in Europe. Seems you keep referencing the game in Europe from last week. But you know what I love?
It's actually because I'm here in Chicago, so it was the only time that I've seen a functional quarterback maybe in my entire lifetime. So it leaves an impression.
I was gonna say he's either a huge Bears fan or he was actually in Europe or both. Yeah. But yeah, you know what I love about that model is that a lot of what is offered from, I guess, like an odds comparison sort of standpoint in the industry is a lot of information just being shot out to the user. And maybe it is like, oh, there's an arbitrage opportunity in this game and it pops out and you're like, oh, sweet, I'll go bet it. And by the time you log into your account, it's already gone, right? It gives the user full autonomy. Like they're making the decision on their read themselves. And we've had a theme on this podcast actually since Bet Bash. And it was the whole mentality of like, don't bet this, bet that. And I think your product really falls in suit with that, where, if you do have sort of this boring 1% to 2% edge on, a certain side in a game, there's nothing wrong with that at all. But there might be a way to actually extract a little bit more value and get that ROI up a little bit if you're consistently getting that edge by using some of these, I guess, sort of correlated wagers that you're referencing on your site. That's so cool. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it is an educational piece, because by the time you're intermediate enough that you might know that these markets exist, or that, oh, there's arbitrage out there, so the market is generally inefficient. I think they're as more and more people kind of up level their betting abilities as they move away from kind of the basic mistakes that all novice bettors make, they probably do have some directional edge, and sometimes it kind of caps out as it's good enough just not to beat the main markets, because that's kind of for the professional investment class, if we're being honest, where right. Again, the average bettor probably are not going to wake up Sunday and put down Pinnacle will take your bet up to $10,000. They're pretty confident in the number at that point. Now you might genuinely know something that they don't. It's just not enough to overcross that, the minus 110 spread, or maybe even the minus the 108 spread. But it doesn't mean that your hunch isn't valuable. It just needs to get deployed in areas that you either don't know are there, or you could do it, but it's just a huge pain in the ass to go have 80 odd screens up there. So let's just do it for you.
Colin, since you brought up Pinnacle, let's use them as an example because they're a great sports book. They don't limit their winners. So obviously that's a place that a lot of players like us look to, knowing that we can actually get down on a game. Will a site like yours benefit you for wagering at a place like Pinnacle that doesn't necessarily have some of these other markets that we're referencing?
I think Pinnacle actually let me not answer your question in another interesting way. Just because I brought it up.
I like that he's straightforward about it.
Your PR guy's working overtime today, Colin.
The other reason why I like this is I think I don't know how much time I give it, but the time-honored strategy of basically middling off of Pinnacle, treating them as a source of your truth or top-down betting, if you want to go that way.
Sure.
Also has its limitations because in some of the more interesting markets like the alts, Pinnacle's alts don't have full coverage over the full range of spreads because they correctly know that to get alts down, you not only need to know essentially the mean of your distribution or whatever variable is, aka the spread, you need to know the variance, and which determines the fair value of all those alts. They only go so far from the main spread for a reason because no one knows how to price any of those alt markets.
Fact, people have tried. People have tried.
Oh, I know.
We've very much enjoyed the books that have tried.
Oh, very much so. And in fact, if I had to guess, I know exactly how they're pricing those. Everybody and their mother has some sort of Monte Carlo simulator because what still works marketing magic is the ability to say, I simulated a game 10,000 times. Well, that must mean that it's 7 decimal point accuracy, right? Because we simulated it 10,000 times. The only reason those simulators have the prominence they do is they're relatively easy to spit out prices for those alt markets. It doesn't mean that they're accurate prices, but the incentives of the operators are not to produce a good number at all times. In fact, many product managers there get evaluated on their day-to-day job of look at how many markets that we were able to spin up. It doesn't matter that those markets are essentially loss leaders or arguably we shouldn't even be offering them. They get to brag to their boss that we spun up a bunch of markets. And the thing with simulators in particular, and the reason why I love their continued use by all the operators, is simulators are always so dependent on the assumptions you feed into them. And if you just spec'd out, if I'm an operator, I need an in-house simulator, and you spec'd it out to 10 different engineering or data science firms, you'd get 10 different values for the same price because everybody has the different assumptions. And so that's why I love a tool like BetScope, because it allows you to access that through things like market consensus, kind of sharpened up over empirical results. And those are markets that don't have Pinnacle governing those actions in all the other books. So
right.
I think
really
that's
cool.
where it kind of gets really interesting. So that's my long way of not answering a question, decided that I would answer a question that I would think was more personally interesting. You're welcome.
Right. Well, I think with all this stuff, there's a bit of a theme here. You were talking about how difficult originating can be and comparing it to say, trying to beat Goldman Sachs with the stock market. And then looking at some of these alternate markets, we did an episode, Shane, way back in the day on chaotic models.
Oh yeah.
And at the end of the day, with all of this predictive stuff, you can only predict whether there's value or not. And a lot of people in this industry, and obviously we're now really referencing the recreational player, they're actually going to try to make predictions where they, you have the whole lock culture, they can't lose, all that kind of stuff. And the Bills are not losing tonight, et cetera, et cetera. You have all that verbiage across the industry, but all of these models will fail when it comes to a lot of these alternate type lines, based on what is actually happening now once the game is started, the chaotic nature of sports. And no matter what you handicap before the game starts, once it's happening, it's all out the window. So that's where sometimes these alternate lines and things like that from a live betting standpoint can just be crazy lucrative, because of sometimes just the nature of the game and what you're actually seeing that is pretty much impossible to handicap. And that's why a book like Pinnacle is so bare bones once the game is on, obviously, but still valuable to have from a live betting standpoint, as Shane, you and I know. But I think what you're doing is super cool. And not being a pregame bettor myself, I can certainly see the merit in in the logic behind, what it is that you're doing. I think it's awesome.
Colin, I want to ask you more about like your motivations for starting this. Like, what's your why behind this company? Why did you want to enter this space and be another tool out there in a space that is rapidly getting filled up with all sorts of betting tools?
He just called you a tool.
Not the first time, won't be the last. Not worried about it. So BetScope started because it was the tool that I wanted to use myself that did not exist in the market. A classic be the change you want to see in the world.
Every great business. There it is. That's the word.
I'd spent some time in the industry before. I was actually at the Action Network as their founding director of data science, like back when that launched.
Okay. Missed that in the bio. Whoa.
Just a little bit. Yeah, it's kind of a distant life. The live bet win probability meter that they have in the app when their bets are logged. You can see the odds of your bet winning as the game goes on. That is my baby. That is one of the many algorithms that I have created in my time as a data scientist, and it lives on. So I have spent some time in the industry enough. The most foundational book I ever read was The Logic of Sports Betting by Ed Miller and Matthew Davidow, which I think that and their sequel Interception should be required reading for anybody who's even 5% serious in this, where the thesis of attack correlated markets with weak pricing rather than just firing into full hold like markets on your hunch was the foundational idea for BetScope. And I saw that no one else was really doing anything that unlocked that type of concept. And I think it hits a sweet spot of providing genuine, provable value to your rec bettors where it actually will make their win rate go up. And it's a concept that just unlocks completely different user experiences and tools because it's a way to kind of expand your level of thinking where if I think this and I think that, well, all these things are connected. And so it kind of moves you away from that lock culture that you talk about where, ultimately, that's what over half of the products out there in this industry are just selling you certainty where there is none. Because sports betting is scary. You want to be confirmed that you're making the right decision. The bottom line is you don't know what's going to happen, and that's what creates the opportunities to actually, find profitable bets. Is because no one knows what's going to happen. And so I also think a lot of people have identity wrapped up in being a good sports bettor, either because I watch college football every Saturday and I know ball. And so this is a way for me to make money on my expertise when it's just because you have a lot of identity wrapped up in it, you think you understand what moves markets and what is predictive. It doesn't necessarily. And I think that leads to a lot of predatory behavior because I'm sure you see it all the time. People want to think of themselves as good sports bettors, but don't necessarily want to do all of the throughput to actually make themselves good sports bettors. Right. So it's trying to find that sweet spot of how do you meet people where they are in terms of having opinions, but also steer them towards something that's actually going to work and not just give them false confidence, essentially.
You said that so much better than I did, so thank you. Colin, I actually have a totally random question for you. The Jeopardy thing, obviously that gets brought, it's part of your identity at Bet Bash. Everyone's like, oh my God, here's the guy that won Jeopardy, right? And you're like, okay, guys, chill out. More like take a bow, right? I have seen so many highlights over the years of where sports get brought up on Jeopardy. And it's obviously rest in peace, Alex Trebek. They're layups, right? They're total layups. Did you ever have that as an edge in your experience with Jeopardy, being the only nerd on the show that knew anything about sports?
I wanted to come up so bad. And in the green room before my episode went on, I was sitting there watching, and I see that one of the categories is called the ABCs of golf. And I had literally done golf analytics for an Action Network predecessor company. I'm like, damn it! Why did I have to get called then? And so I was chomping at the bit for any kind of sports question because I knew I would run the table. And then probably didn't get a single sports question in either of my episodes.
Have you seen those highlights where the whole
the one where no one gets a single football question? I get sent that clip about 5 times a year from different people So yes, I am all too familiar.
Okay.
Love that. Yeah, those clips are hilarious because you're sitting there. I know for any of us who would probably actually suck at Jeopardy if we went on, it's like the one category we would just clean up, and it's like, yeah, you just hope and pray that if you were on there that you would get that. But you did win anyway. You didn't have to get any sports questions.
Yes, I did it the hard way. No, without any sports.
The hard way.
I don't know. I mean, you did it perhaps the hard way, but you found some shortcuts, like some pretty significant shortcuts.
I did. So, like, this is a good segue. So, we should link this or something. But I think if you just Google like Colin Davey Jeopardy, I have an article floating around called "How I Won Jeopardy with Data Science," and it basically goes like the approach is. So here's another. There's so many little things that people don't know about Jeopardy that I love like telling. One of the asides, and I think the secret is slowly getting out on this one. Jeopardy is barely a trivia contest. It's far more a reflex contest disguised as a trivia contest because
interesting.
The biggest thing that people say you need to train for is buzzer speed and not recall of facts. Because how it works when you're on stage is, they read the question. You are only allowed to buzz in when a little light goes off that you cannot see, like when you're watching at home. And if you buzz in too early, you're locked out for a quarter of a second. And so it's all about optimal timing where your thumb needs to be firing as the last syllable is being uttered. So as soon as the light goes off, you're already halfway to buzzing in. And I trained on this for weeks leading up to the episode. And it was by far the bigger source of edge where like you have to be on reflexes by far. So anyone that goes on the show, go buy this book called Secrets of the Buzzer by Fritz Holznagle, former 90s champion.
Stop.
Like, oh no, it was the best investment I ever made. And like I say this lovingly, this $5.99 ebook is the most autistic thing I have ever read because it has every last detail that you would ever want to know about optimizing your buzzer speed. Literally anything you're about to ask, it's already in the book. Someone has obsessed over this far more than I have thought about anything in my life, and I am forever grateful for it. So it's just like a very interesting read.
God.
But that's a tangent. So
that's a great tangent. That is a great tangent. And you know what? Sorry to cut you off, Colin. Separately of how absurd that is such an incredible example of where preparation leads to success.
Yes, you were there. Like the way someone else put it is you're finding the game within the game. What are the objectives? What are my highest leverage areas where I can maximize preparation and improvement? It's not studying the dictionary and downloading all of Wikipedia. It is figuring out what are the maximizing chances of success and optimize for that.
You know what, though? That also shows like when you're watching the show sometimes where someone buzzes in and it wasn't that difficult of a question and they look clueless. And it's because they won the buzzer, but it happened to be a question that they didn't know.
In general, most contestants up there do know the answer to any given question. The tiebreaker is what's your buzzer reflexes. So anyway, keeping on the theme of figuring out where the highest avenue ROI is for prep and all that, one of the other things people don't know about the show is that Jeopardy deliberately reuses certain key phrases and keywords for commonly occurring answers. They call them Pavlov clues, and they do this by design because they want repeat viewers of the show to remember some key phrase, and it's like, oh my God, it's always that.
That's how I sometimes know the answers to stuff I should have no clue about.
Yeah, and like it's because they
makes sense.
Deliberately like reuse it. So like a classic example, if you ever hear the phrase Iowa painter, it's always Grant Wood, the guy that did American Gothic. If it's an art category and you hear the phrase Tahitian women, it's always Gauguin. And they do that on purpose because to engage viewers. And so there wasn't really any study guide, and they're kind of, there's some internet forums that kind of give you some like Pavlov clues and stuff like that. But my thesis was, if I can just remember for every one of the most common answers, if I can reduce my prep to only having to remember 6 words instead of the entire Wikipedia article, that maximizes the amount of key information that I can retain. So what I ended up doing was there's a volunteer site that basically has all the questions going back to, the 80s or the 90s. Downloaded the entire site, ran all of the text for the most common answers through some natural language processing algorithms to extract kind of like those key STEM words and dump them into flashcards. And so, if the answer is Eisenhower, like, all right, I only have to know these like 5 words. And so you basically memorize only those flashcards. And
Wow.
so like it is just doing study or doing prep on hyper efficiency for like how much information do I really need to retain for all these common answers. And if I can get it down to just 6 words, I can cram in the most. And it ended up being the margin of victory for those. Like I basically picked up 3 answers that I wouldn't have otherwise, and that was just enough to get me over the hump.
You know what's crazy about what you just said is that you don't even know the like the actual knowledge associated with the question.
This is the dirty secret about if you have a knack for trivia. We all seem so much smarter than we really are. And you're right. I don't know. Like I did not need to know the whole entirety about everything.
Which reminds you of like cheating on a high school test or something, or like where you memorize a high school test and you didn't actually retain any of the knowledge from that course in high school. It's just in one ear, out the other. You got your A on the exam and you're out of there.
Yeah, that is actually pretty much what it's like to be on Jeopardy, where as soon as I got off, like 90% of it leaked out from all the cramming that I did before, because when am I ever going to need this again?
Yeah. And instead, it's just a spectacular story.
Yeah. The other part that I did appreciate being on, and I've heard this from several people, is having a betting and gambling background really does help you in ways that you don't expect. So one of the other strategies that people don't do or don't employ enough is they don't bet enough when you find a daily double. The math is overwhelming. Like when you find those, like you need to be aggressive on those, because the best way to guarantee you winning is you have to have a lead going into Final Jeopardy, because otherwise it's just like too much craziness and too much variance on the very last question where anything can happen, and you want to be in control of your own destiny. So having a lead going into final is paramount, and that means that you have to get really aggressive and bet a lot when you find a daily double. And I knew that math going in, and when you're under the lights and doing it for real, it is so much more terrifying where you find it and you say, all right, if I have to bet everything and if I don't get this right, my day is done.
Right.
And yet being inundated, having done expected value calculations forever, just knowing the probabilities, that's my version of going for it on 4th and 3. Where I know this is high risk. I know there's a huge, like, bad things can happen if I don't get that right. But the mental backstop that it provides, where it's like, look, I've literally ran the numbers ahead of time. I know this is the optimal strategy. It puts a backstop to your mind that is racing a million miles an hour under the most pressure you've ever felt, to just pull yourself together, find some brain cells left to actually pull the answer from deep where it's in there and execute in the moment. And just having that background just like frees up so much that like you can actually capitalize on knowing like what the right strategy is.
So Colin, what you just said is being a sports bettor and kind of having that analytical mind helping you in that spot. But I think for a lot of our viewers, if you reverse that, it's hugely beneficial. So take that mentality back to your next day of betting. Take that mentality and go, hey, I have the data. I have the analytics. I know I'm making the right decision. And also take it outside of betting. Like you're talking about edges in a game that are very much provided by preparation, by study, by factual information. Approach life that way, right? Like the edges are ongoing and relentless if you take this approach. It could be anything from, how you manage your money to, finding your next flight hack or deal to, the list goes on and on, right? I think you're a freaking genius. I think that's obvious. But I love the way that you break it down to make it, I don't want to say make it simple, because nothing you did was simple, but you make it understandable for idiots like Shane and I.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. And, it's just like, I think Pace, like, what you're getting at there. That's what I'm thinking the whole time. It's like, here's a guy. Yeah, he's got this data background, this sports betting background, but he's somebody who just sees life in a way where, he recognizes that the edges we need to win at life, regardless of what it is, are all around us all the time. And I think you just gave us a great example of that, which is so cool.
Colin, I actually have to ask you. Go ahead, Colin. Go ahead.
I mean, one of the advantages of that, it's like the annoying thing about life. It's like, I agree with the message, obviously. If you're listening to this and it's like, great, I'll go apply that strategy in my life. Life is wonderfully murky and gray, and it's never that black and white when you're trying to take like a process-focused mindset, because emotions get in the way. You don't always have the data. The nice thing about a game show like Jeopardy is it's an environment where there is none of that gray area in life. There's a process, there's a right answer. It's entirely fact-based. And the thing that I appreciated about it a couple years removed is I can always anchor myself in that moment where it's like, in an environment where there is no gray, this approach worked fine. You carry that over the rest of life. It's all about trying to make it as little gray as possible and kind of anchor yourself, being like, nope, it's all there to begin with. It's the process is there. The mindset is there. It's just trying to frame everything that you encounter that's murky and gray and not straightforward in life into that, like, all right, how do I make it a black and white? How do I jeopardize it, so to speak?
Yeah. So I want to bring up the 4th and 3 analogy. And the reason why is because the majority of our viewers bet live with us. Right. Mm-hmm. And we talked about, okay, we're not pregame bettors, and the way we wager is actually, the more pregame information we have, oftentimes we'll view it as noise. It could muddy our opinions of the game prior to the game starting, and then carry those opinions into the game as a result. Now, there's all these analytics in football today, right? Go, don't go, whatever the case pops up on the screen on a 4th down situation. This is an uneducated and biased opinion, so I want to get your thoughts on it. The 4th down analytics that were being presented don't actually account for the situation. And what I mean by that is, yes, the average yards are this, or yes, if they get it, that's the probability, or yes, if they fail, that's the probability that's listed. But too many times, 4th down conversions are being failed because of the intensity of the situation and perhaps the emotion that we have noticed. And a really good example of that is 2 times this year, Sean McVay has gone for it 4th and goal from the 5 on like the opening drive or in the first quarter. He keeps failing. Josh McDaniel keeps failing on 4th down in these circumstances. So I feel like sometimes with these analytics, like there's league averages being applied to a situation that maybe isn't accounting for the fact that, okay, this isn't just any other 5 yards anymore. This isn't just any other 3 yards anymore. Do you have any opinion on that at all?
I think it's somewhere in between. I think you are right where the percentages are basically a good baseline, and what they're really there to do is to point out instances where the gap between, like, say, punt, field goal versus go for it, or whatever, the win expectancy gap is on the order of something like 8 or 10% or something like that. When it's close, I do think there is avenues for a coach to basically say, like, well, the model's not pricing in XYZ, and due to my expertise, I'm feeling that this is like, I will deviate from it a little bit. But historically, I think most people, you have to start with the assumption that you are overestimating your own agency in terms of being that tiebreaker. So I think most people take it outside of 4th down, or like, let's say you have a close call or some numbers that gives you like decision A, decision B. People do tend to overvalue their own agency in terms of being a tiebreaker, because
totally,
again, kind of what we were talking about at the beginning. I am the protagonist of reality. Mm-hmm. Only I can know the sacred truths, because you want to feel like you're that special. Right. And that's why, like, I think everybody is better off starting from the premise of, nope, I'm a huge dumbass and I'm going to like look for better structure and guidance, versus I know everything and like some tools are there to help me, but I'm not really going to be there. So I think there is some humility there that benefits all situations. And so I am sympathetic to your view on analytics don't price in XYZ, But the X factor is like, okay, well, if in some mysterious world we could quantify that, how much does that move the needle for you? Is it 2%? Is it 20%? And more oftentimes, people's arbitrary numbers like just so happen to be, oh yeah, it moves at this percent because that's the way that shows that I'm actually a genius. So like at the end of the day, I still think people do overvalue their own judgment and agency. And you have to have a track record of basically outperforming those like essentially like model recommendations. And there are some people that do. Actually, interesting. I think this is a good enough tangent. Actually, like I interviewed a couple years ago for an ESPN analytics job, where their own internal SIG team or stats information group, they had their own predictive model where they're going to try to predict every single game, and they had an open challenge to all the analysts and the on-air talent, see if you can beat a robot. And to my point, 99% of people like who thought they knew ball could not do it. And there was exactly one savant that just kicked the machine's ass every single time. Former Bama quarterback Greg McElroy.
What?
A name you haven't heard of or thought of in probably forever, but he was just one of those people that is that platonic ideal of like, I know the model says this, but I know this, and I really do think that this is more important than the model's giving credit for. And he's the only one
Wow.
to apply it over and over again.
But did he have a background that supported that, or was it like?
Yeah, he was a Bama quarterback. Like he
no. I'm sure he played the game. He knows the game. But I'm talking about like models and.
No, not at all.
Right. So it was instinctual. It was his years of experience that built.
Yeah, and he could he could accurately digest what the model is and is not pricing in.
Wow.
And adjust accordingly.
That is so cool. You know what's interesting about this whole conversation is, do you remember the viral clip, Lamar Jackson's MVP season, 4th and 2? Harbaugh pulls off the headset. Hey, Lamar, you want to go for it? And he goes, hell yeah, coach, let's go for it.
Yeah.
So they pick it up, scores the TD on the play, goes viral. Everyone's going nuts about it. I think the next 4th down conversion, the Ravens did it again and they scored.
Yeah.
After that, they missed about 3 in a row, and now John Harbaugh kicks on like 4th and inches, like all the time now. And it's interesting because the result for him, he couldn't stomach when it didn't work. So if it's working, it's like, great, let's keep doing it. It's almost like you hit 5 bets in a row, right? And then you miss the 6th, and you're like, I'm not betting that bet again. Like that, it's too risky to get $0 back, right? And now he's been super conservative since then. Yes, of course, there's times where he's gone on 4th down, but he's been a lot more conservative since then. And the flip side to it is, again, those examples I'm going to give you, like McDaniel or McVay, where they just don't seem to ever really get it. And again, of course, that's a biased opinion of mine to even say that. But that's kind of how it seems. Like it just does not work, but they keep doing it because they believe the analytics behind the decision. So, it's 2 very different approaches to the situation, and we watch it all unfold in real time. And, we have to obviously factor the coaches into the situations that we're in, right? Like Dan Campbell, right? Like he's an outlier in this discussion. And, we just watched, I don't know how much you followed Sunday, but we just watched Fat Mike McCarthy go for it like 4th and 2, 4th and 3, 4th and 4 on his own side of the field and fail every single time in a football game, and just watch it turn into an absolute disaster for his team, where I don't know if that was analytics or just pure stubbornness, but
feels like it has tin cup energy, just like
fucking 12 on this whole tin cup energy. That's such a good analogy. Yeah. Anyways, I just wanted to get your opinion on that topic, because we're all following that stuff so closely. And then the other side of it is with these analytics and things like that are happening in the game is, you'll watch like entire leagues not go for 2 when they're down 14 and they score the first touchdown. Whereas the NFL, everyone's doing it now. College, they're like, oh no, they kicked the PAT. Oh, they kicked the PAT. CFL, oh, they kicked the PAT. And it's really weird. It's like, are you guys opposed to analytics? Do you not look at that kind of stuff? Are you not understanding the rationale and the percentages behind why they're doing it in the best league in the world, and you're not carrying it into yours? Like, it's nuts.
Yeah, like At the end of the day, everybody operates according to incentives. And incentives don't always like perfectly align with what we think the like actual job description is. Again, like what is a coach's job? Is it to win football games, or is it to keep a job as a coach?
Interesting.
Like, those are two very different job descriptions. What is the job of a sportsbook operator? Is it to provide, or what is your job as a project manager at a sportsbook operator? Is it to make sure that your products make money for the company, or is your job to show how many products you made? Because that oppresses the vice president, and look at how many things I can build, no matter how they turn a profit.
Right.
Everybody just has different incentives. This is a long way of saying I'm really excited to see ways that generative AI is just going to be shoehorned into every single sportsbook offering, not because we actually want it or need it in any of our sportsbook UIs, but it's because every single one of the C-suite has decided that we need AI in all our products. So everybody's just going to be ramming these things in every single nook and cranny, despite the fact that no one asked for it.
Well, people are terrified of being the next Blockbuster, so they feel like they have to.
Yeah. Right? Got to keep up.
Yeah, and that creates it depends on if you think that like are you facing the threat of Netflix, or are you facing the threat of I don't even know what the analogy is of a not real Netflix is. None of them should be afraid of ChatGPT.
Right. And the other part of that discussion as well is the user, right? So the user's using AI. Are they going to be smarter than us? Right. But do you know what I mean? That is a thought for sure.
Yes, it is a thought. But again, like I think there are plenty of people walking around with these fantasies of I can just ask a robot, what are the good bets this week? And the interesting thing about that robot is going to be so confident in telling you what the right bets are, because they have all been programmed with the most mansplainy affect of like, yeah, I know everything. Oh, that's an easy one to answer. I get the answers right here. And it's like, no, you're not actually coming up with an original thought.
You know what's crazy too is if you can ask ChatGPT like something like this, like what was the score in each of the quarters in the NBA preseason game tonight, and they'll just pump out this totally wrong answer, and I'm like, where are you getting your data from? That's wrong. And rather than saying I'm sorry, like what is the correct answer, they give you another wrong answer. So it's like, oh, it was actually this, and I'm like, if you add up the 4 quarters, it doesn't equal the game score. You've got the right game score. Like, you're smarter than this. I know you are. And then I'll be like, would you like me to tell you the scores? And then they go, okay. And they're like, I've factored that in. And it's like, oh my God. I've asked some crazy probability questions that we have data on to some of these AI services. And let's put it this way. They're not there yet. They're not there yet. There's a use case for them 100%, and a lot of great ones, but there's definitely some shortfalls for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Colin, it's been great having you on the show. Really, I feel like I'm walking away from this having learned a lot, but feeling maybe perhaps that much dumber coming into it to begin with. but I always benefit from these kinds of conversations in a major way, and really look forward to chatting with you again at some point in the future. Where can people find you if they want to hit you up for their data science questions? How can they reach out to you?
Just shoot me a note. I'm on Twitter still at ADJ Baseline, and then you can usually find me at Colin at betscope.io.
Awesome. All right. Well, Colin, Pace, and everybody tuning in from around the world, all you sports bettors out there, till next week. Keep eating those books. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Lines. Remember to like, download, and subscribe. We are on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. Have a betting story or want to be featured on our podcast? Drop a note in the comments below. And if you want to join in Play Live, use promo code Behind the Lines.